Oh, I'm not going to be forced to have questions at the end.
And all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. Good evening, everybody. Glad you're here, surviving the holidays, surviving the rain. It's interesting, just a few people here, the special ones. I was thinking about, it's probably about 10 years ago, and good evening to our millions of YouTube followers as well. This is probably about 10 years ago, and in 2003, I started doing meditation in prison, and a number of different prisons, but I eventually ended up at the INS, which was a prison out in El Centro, and it was an hour and a half each way. And a lot of times I'd get out there and there would often be just one person sitting there. And when I got there, it was always this practice of recognizing that whoever's there at that moment is who needs to be there at that moment. And we often get, in a situation like that, this idea in our head that, well, if I'm going that far, then there should be, a lot of people. But it was a great practice for me early on, really, to just recognize that you're just sitting with whoever you're sitting with, and to really abandon any sort of ideas or expectations of anything whatsoever. And it's become quite a beautiful practice for me personally in my life. And it doesn't mean that you don't have ambition or drive, or that you don't work just as hard, because at least for me, this practice is that and more. There's just not room for laziness in this practice. But on the end of that is this practice of also not attaching to outcomes or expectations. And there's really a fine line there, because if you are working hard with your practice, or with family, or with friends, or work, whatever it might be, That's really important. But can you do all that without this idea of what do I get at the end? What's the outcome going to be? What are the benefits? What are the rewards? What's in it for me? And very often, so many things that we do in our lives is really this kind of thing at the end that we're working towards and trying to get or trying to gain or trying to acquire. Anyway, yeah. Except for those two, but anywhere else, yeah. And so the practice really is to just recognize that in each moment, you're just showing up, you're present, you put all of your intention, all of your effort, all of your kindness, all of whatever it is into that moment. And whatever the result is, that's where you work on as a lot of people say, letting go. But for me, it's a not attaching. And non-attachment doesn't mean that you don't care or that you don't love or that you're not um, present with it. It just means you've let go of this idea of any sort of gaining impact. And it's become quite for me, like I said, a beautiful practice outside of what we may think is Buddhism, because Buddhism really is just a reflection, an opportunity to see what your life is all about. So when you think about each aspect of your life, and again, family, friends, and work, whatever that might be, can you work hard, be diligent at it, go beyond laziness, but also not be tied or attached to any sort of kind of carrot at the end or bonus or goal or anything like that. So, and finding a balance with all of that is important as well. But all right, so with that, we'll go ahead and we'll sit. There's a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. For those who might be new or sitting for the first time here, nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. Your mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Am I doing it right or doing it wrong? You're just going to sit and breathe. You won't think nothing. Your mind's not going to go blank. You'll hear sounds. These are just things that are happening around us, and this is life. The practice of meditation is not escaping from anything, but learning to be present with everything as it is. So, posture, if you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten if you're on the chairs or the benches. Also, just pushing the stomach forward, sitting upright, allows the shoulders to relax. Hands can be on the knees or on the lap, whatever is comfortable. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with this practice, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, you'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. And simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognizing, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments of the practice, just sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in, breathing out, follow breath out. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still and rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, the most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samupata. It means dependent origination. And this is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He's a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that happens throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape. I always say distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. And really imagine, ponder what it would be like to go through your day without being disturbed by someone. Were all of you disturbed by someone today? I mean, it is already like 7:30, so odds are pretty good. The morning class is less likely, Maybe you ignored the whole world until you got here in the morning or something like that. But we tend to get disturbed pretty easily. And for me, this practice is really tying in why the meditation is so important. Meditation practice is about learning to stay present with things as they are. Being disturbed by someone means we're not present. Being disturbed by someone means we've observed something that has occurred, and we have then gone into storytelling in our head about what we don't like, who we don't like, how we wish they had been, what we wish they didn't do, why they didn't listen to us. A million stories occur anytime we feel disturbed. And so as we're sitting in that moment and something occurs and we feel disturbed by someone, it's important to recognize that it's not the person who's disturbing you. It's you who is disturbing you. This is really hard to put into your life. Nobody disturbs you. You disturb yourself with the stories you tell yourself about other people. It's really hard to put that practice into words, but it's almost as if there's this separation or this wall that's like invisible. And there's your mind. And there are things that people do, which in ultimate reality have absolutely nothing to do with us. They're just doing things. Just like we are doing things. We then observe that thing. It's almost as if our mind like jumps out, grabs their mind, and puts whatever they're doing in ours. And then the stories go wild. And then we sit there annoyed, angry, disturbed. But they didn't disturb you. You disturbed yourself by attaching to some sort of expectation or outcome of how we wanted them to be. And so what I talked about at the beginning of tonight, it's really the same thing. Of going beyond any sort of expectations of how we want things or people or places to be or how we want them to turn out. For me, another great way to practice what I'm really talking about, which is, in essence, abiding in a place where nobody can disturb you, is to also recognize, and this is, for me, a practice of wisdom and compassion, but to recognize that we've done things that disturb people. Even under the mask, I can see the smile. Just quite possibly. So now, forget everything I said about how nobody disturbs you. So forget all that for a minute and now look at another way to practice this, which is recognizing that we have done things that have disturbed people. Now, sure, everything I just said says ultimately that's not true and we don't disturb them. They chose to be disturbed. But forget that for a minute and recognize that we do things that disturb people because they're not practicing the types of things that we're talking about. So one way to, for me, again, having the opportunity to apply compassion and wisdom is to understand that just like we are doing our best with the conditions we have, we are working on ourselves, hopefully not annoying, disturbing, bothering too many people, but it does at times occur. And so the wisdom and compassion part comes in where you begin to recognize that just like we are working on ourselves at our own pace and our own way, others are doing whatever they need to do at their own pace and their own way. And if we have this ability to disturb others, then it's quite possible and okay to begin to understand that others will do things that we may allow to disturb us as well. So this requires us moving beyond the judgment and critique of how we think others should be. So again, not easy. As I always say, this practice is not easy. It is not necessarily fun, and it is not the escape. It's waking up to the reality that we spend a lot of time judging, critiquing other people. And because of that, we suffer. And because we want people to be different and behave different, we suffer. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really always prefer just to open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that you're sitting with. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this evening, and I'll respond to your thoughts or your questions.
I have a question. Is there a specific right amount of time that is, I don't know, the best
To meditate?
to be going into meditation?
Sure. So the question was, is there a specific right amount of time to do a meditation practice? I don't think so. There's a couple different ways to look at this. For me, if someone is newer to practice, meaning it's not a routine, it's not a habit, it's not something you do every single day, which is most people, then I always encourage people to sit for 5 minutes, and that's it. Now, if I said to you, you should sit 30, 40 minutes every day, twice a day, what are the odds of that happening? Like 0. Now, if I say sit every single day for 5 minutes, it goes up to like 1%, but hey, that's still better than 0. So I think when we look at developing a daily meditation practice, we have to be realistic with it. And it helps to not make meditation be this big event, right? Now, obviously, we have classes, everybody has classes for meditation, whatever it might be, but it doesn't have to be a class. It doesn't have to be a big production. It doesn't have to be you going somewhere or, making a whole big deal out of it. It just is you sitting down quietly for 5 minutes every single day. You brush your teeth today?
I think so.
You think so, right? Chances are maybe you did at least yesterday, right? Tomorrow. Those are things we do every day. We brush our teeth, we comb our hair. I don't have to worry about that so much, but there are these things we do every single day that just become habit. We don't think about it, right? I mean, when you go to brush your teeth, you don't set a timer, do you? You just kind of brush your teeth, and then whenever you feel like you're done, you're done. Meditation should be the same way at the beginning if you don't have a daily practice, because that means you're going to just make it more likely that you'll actually do it. And then once you develop a daily practice from there, if you want to sit longer, that's great, but I'm still not a fan of setting a goal or a time. As I talked about again at the beginning, one great practice I find is letting go of this idea of something to gain or to get or a goal. And what happens is often people sit down and for years I've heard people say, hey, I'm up to 15 minutes in meditation. I don't mean any offense by this. Reality is people say, I'm up to 15 minutes. Okay. So let's say they were at 10 yesterday and now they want to try 15. What's very often happening between 10 and 15 is they're looking at their watch every minute just to see if they've done another minute or not yet. Like it's a check mark. So it's not about how long you sit. It's about the quality of just sitting and being with your breath. And if you do sit 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, again, there's nothing wrong with those things, or it's not bad, or, but we suffer so much in our lives because we're stuck in these boxes of time and things, and we're just stuck. Everything's on a schedule. So allow meditation to be something that is away from all of that. Don't bring the same madness and craziness that we put in our lives into meditation practice. Just sit. And then when you feel like you don't want to sit anymore, don't sit anymore. Does that make sense? Yeah, and then another way to look at it, the other kind of side to that is beginning to bring meditation into everything you're doing, not just like, I'm going to sit down and do a meditation. Right? Very often people's lives are crazy, hectic, stressed out, these messes, we're running around, we're rushing, so many important things we think we have to do, and then we're like, okay, I got to go find my place to just sit. It's like this 1,000 miles an hour, and then we slam on the brakes and we crash. And then wake up the next day, and then you go 1,000 miles an hour again. And then you're running around looking to finally get the end of your day to where you can just sit and crash. Not healthy at all. Bring meditation into everything you're doing. All meditation is a concentration and focus on the present moment. So if you're eating, concentrate and focus on eating. If you're walking, concentrate and focus on walking. If you're reading, whatever you're doing, bring meditation into that. So that way meditation isn't like a separate event. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
I'm admittedly not familiar with these practices, but from a ritualistic perspective, what is the pacing or frequency or recommendation of including meditation in a weekly lifestyle, like on a daily basis?
Sure. As far as like,
I don't know, is it a morning, like?
oh, when you're talking about?
Like personally, I think quality over quantity and the number of minutes doesn't matter.
For sure.
And like you said, you can incorporate meditation into active, mobile,
Yes.
all sorts of practices throughout your day, all sorts of habits in your life can become meditative.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just curious from a Buddhist lens of the religion.
Yeah.
What a practicing Buddhist.
Sure. There isn't one. So from like there's no like religious ritual concept for how long or when you should meditate. It's not there. It becomes a.
Well, not even necessarily a should, like a advice.
A what? Advice?
Advice, like not a directive.
Oh yeah. That was going to be my follow-up, but the way you worded it was almost the way I heard what you were saying was, what is the religious practice for when and how meditation should occur? Because those things do exist in other religions. There are certain times that you should pray. So when I heard the question, that's kind of where my mind went, where certain religions say at this time we should pray.
That was one level of the question.
Okay, yeah. And so that's kind of where I started with it. And that doesn't, it's not like the Buddha said, this is when you should meditate, or this is when you should do these types of things. For 2,500 years, every Buddhist temple, practice, culture, country does it differently across the board. Whether you're in Thailand or if you're in Japan or you're sitting in San Diego, all the different schools of Buddhism have different ways of ritual and practice. So there is no one way. My suggestion, recommendation, advice is with a daily meditation practice first thing in the morning. I think it's incredibly healthy to wake up. And I don't mean like lay in bed and hit snooze for 5 minutes and call that your meditation, right? Like wake up, splash water in your face, brush your teeth, whatever you got to do, and then just sit for 5 minutes. I like doing it first thing in the morning because it kind of just sets the tone for the rest of the day. You sit for 5 minutes, you're like, okay, the morning's going to be hectic, it's going to be crazy, but I'll get through it. Noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you're already angry, you're frustrated, you're annoyed, you're stressed out. Go sit for 5 minutes again. Nighttime, you have trouble sleeping, which, a lot of people do, then try this for 5 minutes before you go to bed. So I think for me, Buddhist practice is a very practical, logical concept. It just makes sense that if I allow my mind time to settle, throughout the day, then my emotions will be more steady. If my emotions are more steady, I'll be happier. If I'm happier, then other people around me will benefit. That makes sense? So that's my personal recommendation always for people is 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, 5 minutes at night. I think that's just smart, kind of how we eat meals or brush your teeth, or again, these daily habits that just become routine. Um, and then I think it's also important that, if you miss like your morning meditation, it's not like, you're going to like Buddhist hell or anything like that, you don't want to force it too much. But for most people, you'll find it as you begin to practice, it becomes pleasant and it becomes enjoyable, and you just enjoy sitting. Does that kind of answer? Yeah. And I've kind of already said this, but I think even for individuals, creating a way and a time at home is important, and that, of course, is also going to be different for each person.
That connects to the other question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
If I may.
No, go ahead. Yeah, please.
That communal versus individual meditation
Mhm.
is like a different experience often, and
Yeah.
what is, I'm just curious if
Sure.
if there's spaces to come together and do this other than like an interclass that you guys are offering, but
Yeah.
like a coming together.
So each person, again, very specific to the individual, but people respond differently. And so when you sit, whether you're with yourself, I've sat with myself, I've sat with one person, and I've sat with 2,000 people, right? Whether you're sitting with yourself or 1,000 other people, you're still there. And so you are mentally, emotionally going to create some sort of concept in your mind that there's a difference if you sit by yourself or with 500 other people. There's not. It's just you, right? Now, I hear very often people will say they like sitting in a group. Now, my experience from hearing people share what that means is it's really tied to the fact that when you go somewhere, wherever you go, and you sit with whoever you sit with, you're not going to get up right now and turn on your TV, right? You're not going to get up right now and open your refrigerator. You're not going to get up right now and go walk the dog because you're here, and here could be anywhere, right? So very often when we go somewhere and we have a place that we sit and there's people there, that letting go of everything else that's in our lives is what creates that feeling that is different. But if you're sitting here with 100 people, if you're sitting at home by yourself, you're still there. And there's a great kind of expression quote, wherever you go, there you are. And really what that's getting at is it's just your mind sitting. It's funny because I've been leading the Saturday morning and Tuesday night for 12, 14 years. And, you get used to sitting with 60, 70, 80 people in here in the world that we were in prior to 16 months ago, I like having a few people here personally, but ultimately for me, even when we were closed, and this is just my own personal experience, even when we were closed for 16 months, And I was leading it not from here, but I was at my parents' house because I would be there a lot in the evenings helping them. So I would be at their house and I would be in the room that my brother grew up in, which was furthest away from where everybody else was, just so it was quieter. And I'm sitting there staring at this screen, the YouTube thing, and there was a mirror behind that. I'm looking at this camera, there's a mirror behind here, and I'm sitting there and all I see is just a scroll of names and little emojis and all these kinds of things. And I was just talking to Jeremy, somebody the other day on Saturday about this, that it was so hard for me leading for a year staring at myself, right? But that's part of the practice is you show up, and it's like when you walked in, you're like, oh no, is it going to be just me? Do I have to answer all the questions? I hope you don't feel bad. And I said, I'd be sitting here right now if nobody was here. So you learn to recognize that each moment, it's just you, your breath, your thoughts. That's the entire practice. And if you can begin to apply that to everything in your life will be much more pleasant if we can learn to go beyond the stories in our head. So I don't know if that's helpful at all. I'm just rambling. But yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Anything? Look like you got something brewing in your head there.
Oh, I didn't, but actually I didn't, and then I just thought of something like the second, which was, is there, I was looking online at some of the temples that were mentioned. Is there one that you're sharing space with now that's meeting here on Sundays, or are they not doing it now?
Who's they?
And I'm trying to remember, I think it was like a 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock on Sunday. I'm trying to remember,
Well, I can tell you this, whatever it was,
is it?
no.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, we're, like I
It was
said,
just, yeah, it's another, Buddhist practice.
yeah. The only other group that, again, pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
when we would see 600-800 people a week through here, the Open Heart Sangha,
That's exactly what it was. I
They
saw it on
would-
Facebook.
they would use this space here, which so many of those folks, like, even though they have, like, the Open Heart Sangha is its own
Yeah.
Sangha within the Deer Park, Thich Nhat Hanh, I should
That's
say,
what- I was on
tradition.
Deer Parks, yeah, that's exactly. what
To
it
me, so many of those people are here anyway, so I
Yeah.
never really saw a separation between the two.
Yeah.
But they would meet, again, pre-pandemic, they would meet Tuesdays at 5:30
was. Okay.
prior to the Tuesday night group. But we have not,
The only reason I asked is not that I'm trying to do something different,
Yeah.
but I saw somewhere 4 to 6 on Sunday, and since Saturday mornings, I have a different
yeah.
thing going. I thought, well, maybe I should do that one.
Mm.
But I know it sounded like at some point the
Yeah.
Sunday evening,
The lab,
back will open back up the, like a loving kindness practice.
Loving Kindness is Wednesdays at 7.
Yeah, but it's like, directing healing towards other people.
You're talking about the Tonglen practice,
Yes.
which is Sunday at 7. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
At some point, I mean, I still can come in, weeknights are just sometimes hard for me, so I'm
Sure.
trying to figure out how,
Yeah,
when it might be possible for me to get it on weekend, but
understood.
I made it
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks, and I came Wednesday last week and then here.
Nice.
The week before, so it's nice that you have options. If you can't make one night, you come
Yes.
the other night, so.
And unfortunately, right now, our schedule is just so super limited.
Well,
we have to keep it safe and comfortable.
it's less unfortunate
Yeah.
than none at all, so actually
Right.
it's pretty good.
And for 16
I
months,
mean,
it was none
yeah.
at all, and that sucked.
Yeah.
It really did.
I was peeking in during that time because I kind of wanted to come around. So
Yeah,
here we are, so good.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'll leave it at that, but, you know, if we can ever get things under control and to where people are comfortable, you know, where we are comfortable being here with people as well. I mean, there's a few of us who run this place and we have to be comfortable.
Right.
You know, I mean, I said on a Saturday morning, we cap it at 40 because none of us are comfortable with 80 people in here.
These different scheduled gatherings, it sounds like, what are they? Are they different sessions?
So our current schedule right now is Tuesday night, Saturday morning, I do what I call Intro to Buddhism and Meditation. Wednesday night, Alex leads a metta loving kindness meditation practice. So it's just another type of meditation and another Dharma talk. Thursday nights, Travis does what we call Dharma Bum Basics in meditation. And then we have the recovery song there for drug, alcohol addiction, and we have our morning meditation. So each night is different. Again, typically we would have 7 nights a week, 7 mornings a week, afternoon classes. Right now we only have a few. But they're all different. A bunch of us unenlightened folks leading. Yeah.
And all on this website. There's a
Yeah, it's all
schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just-
And it, you
Is it
know,
all open to the public? 'Cause
everything. Yeah, everything we do is open, free, always to everybody. Just show up.
Are
Yeah.
you finding the caps are being met?
What's that?
Are you filling up? You said there's a cap at 40.
Just on Saturday. Yeah. So, anything else before we close?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to the more than 4 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, and to their family and friends who continue to suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So as I just shared, just about every night we have different practices going on. Schedule is super limited right now. Typically we would open at 8 a.m. and close at 9 p.m. Now we do sit Monday through Friday. It's a silent sit, 8 and 8:30, Monday through Friday mornings. So you can just show up and sit. We have a different person who leads. There's no talk, there's no teaching, just an opportunity to sit. And then again, the schedule Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. The recovery Sangha meets Tuesday night downstairs and Sunday morning. The only classes, as I mentioned, that do require RSVP right now is the Saturday morning and then the Tuesday night recovery Sangha. So other than that, please be safe out there. We wish you well. Happy holiday season. And thanks for being here. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. I cheated and brought slippers in because my feet were cold.